Here is a bet I would take every day of my life and lose every single time. There is a particle, and there is one particular spot it might land on. It can reach that spot by either of two routes. Call them two little doors. Open only the first door and the particle turns up on that spot now and then. Fair enough. Close it, open only the second door, same story, it turns up there now and then. So open both doors at once, and surely it lands there more often than before. And it does not. Open both and it never lands on that spot again, not once. You gave the thing a second way to arrive, and you made arriving impossible.
You did. And before you talk yourself out of it, that is not a riddle, and it is not a card trick with the lights turned low. It is a plain laboratory fact, checked so many times over that nobody sane argues with it anymore. Two ways to reach a place, and the place goes dark. Open a second door, and the room it opened into empties out.
But that is monstrous. Listen to what it does to me. Everything I know about luck, about odds, about chance of any shape, says that more ways for a thing to happen can only ever make it more likely, or leave it exactly where it was, never less. A second door is a gift. It cannot be a punishment, and you are standing there telling me the gift slammed the room shut.
I am, and I know how it sounds. It sounds like the universe cheating at cards.
So which is it? Is the particle cheating, or are the doors? Because one of them has to be lying to me, and I would dearly like to know who to be angry at.
Neither, and that is the part that should unsettle you most. The particle plays it straight. The doors are just doors. What is doing this to you is the arithmetic, the sum nature runs underneath, the one you never get to see. She is adding things up in an order you would never dream of using, and by the end of tonight, you are going to watch her do it, step by step, right out in the open air.
The arithmetic. All right. And I gather this is the bill you left me holding last week, because you have that look. You spent a whole evening telling me the particle is not really a little ball on a track, it is a spread-out wave of maybe, a wave of possibility, smeared over every place it could be. And on your way out the door you tossed me two promises, and refused to keep either one.
I remember the promises. Say them back to me, so I know which debts I am settling.
1. That if I take the size of that wave at a spot and square it, out drops the odds of finding the particle there. And 2, this was the sly one, that hidden inside the wave there was some little turning clock hand you would not explain. You let me carry that clock around in my pocket for a week, like a coin I wasn't allowed to spend.
Both debts, and tonight I pay them in full, with interest. That squared size, the rule that turns a wave of maybe into hard odds, has a proper name, and we are going to say it out loud and mean it. And that little turning clock hand is not some footnote I forgot. It is the star of the evening. Everything strange you just described, the bet you would lose, the door that darkens a room, lives or dies on that one turning hand.
Then I want it, all of it, but do me a kindness and build it slowly, because last time you flashed me the ending and left me a week to fail at it alone. Start me somewhere I can plant both feet.
Then let us plant them, first in the ordinary world, the sane one, where your bet would win every time. I want that world solid under you before I pull it out from under you, because the pulling only lands if you loved the floor.
The sane world, where more doors is always good news.
Always. Take any ordinary chance you please. 2 roads to a friend's house, and one is washed out. You take the other. Open both, and you are only ever more likely to arrive, or just as likely, never less. Buy a second raffle ticket, and your chances climb, or at worst, hold. They certainly do not sink. 2 ways to win a game, and you would always rather hold both than one.
This is almost insulting, it's so obvious. If a thing can happen this way or that way, and the 2 ways don't step on each other, You add the chances up. The chance of this plus the chance of that. That's the sum of it. I've been doing that sum since I was a child, splitting sweets with my sister.
You have, and every word of it is correct. Out here in the big, slow world. Add the chances. More ways, more likely. It is one of the deepest instincts you own, and it has never once let you down.
Give me one everyday case where it holds, just so I feel the floor under me before you take it away. Anything.
Buy 2 raffle tickets instead of 1. Your chance of winning climbs, plainly. And never, not once in the whole history of raffles, does the second ticket reach over and cancel the first, leaving you worse off than before you bought it. 2 tickets never make a win impossible. Hold that, because that is the thing about to fail.
I hear a but being loaded into the chamber.
You hear correctly. It has never let you down. Out here. Down where the particle lives, it is not merely unreliable, it is wrong at the root. The quantum world breaks this exact rule, the add the chances rule, and it breaks it right at the spot you trust it most.
Now, be honest with me about how it breaks, because I'm braced for it to break the rule by going vague on me. By turning slippery, hand-wavy, foggy, some smear where the clean numbers used to sit. That's what quantum always sounds like it's threatening.
That is the trap, and I want to spring you from it before we take another step. Nature does not break your rule by being vaguer than you. She breaks it by being more precise than you. She is holding a richer kind of number than the plain chance you have been adding up, a number with more packed into it, and she runs her sum on the richer thing first and only flattens it into a plain chance at the very last moment.
A richer kind of number. So the plain chance, the plain one shot in this, one shot in that isn't actually what the particle is carrying around under its coat.
That is the first true turn of the night, so let it land slowly. The plain chance is not what the quantum state carries at each point. It carries something underneath the chance, something the chance is only ever the shadow of. At every place the particle might be, the state does carry a number, but it is not a probability. It is called an amplitude.
An amplitude. Fine, I've met the word at parties, never been introduced properly. What is it when it's at home? A big chance? A small chance? A chance wearing a nicer coat?
It is not a chance at all, and that is the thing you must not let slip past you. A chance is a plain, flat quantity. So much, from nothing up to dead certainty, and that is the whole of it. An amplitude is a stranger animal. Do not picture an amount, picture an arrow, a little arrow drawn at that spot, and it carries 2 things at once. It has a length, and it has a direction it points.
A length and a direction. So, not just how much, but which way.
How much and which way? Both welded together, and you cannot prize the 2 apart. And if the word arrow feels too much like a schoolroom diagram, here is the other picture, the one I dangled last week and would not open. A little clock hand. A hand pinned at that spot, reaching out a certain distance, stopped at some hour of the dial. The reach of the hand is the length. The hour it points to is the direction. 1 object, 2 pictures, an arrow or a little clock. Take whichever your mind holds more kindly.
I'll take the clock. It gives the direction an honest place to live. An hour on a face, something I can actually see in my head. But let me make sure I've got the shape of the claim, because it's a big one. You're telling me that underneath every spot where the particle might turn up, there isn't a plain number quoting me the odds. There's a tiny clock hand, pointing some way.
Everywhere the wave reaches, a little hand, aimed some way, reaching some distance. The whole wave of possibility you met last week, that is really a whole field of these little hands. 1 at every point, each with its own reach and its own hour. That is what the wave was made of all along. Last week I showed you only its brightness and kept the hands under my hat.
And here's the thing that's been gnawing at me since last week, so let me just get it out. What is the wave made of? You told me it's not a wave in water, not a wave in air, not even a wave in those fields of yours that carry light. So what's actually waving? What's the stuff?
The honest answer is the one you hated last week, and I'll not soften it now. There is no stuff. The little hands are not made of anything. They are not a substance thinned out across space. They are the bookkeeping of possibility itself, how much the particle leans toward being here, and now which way its hidden hand points here. Asking what they're made of is like asking what a chance is made of. It isn't made of anything. It is a number the world carries at each place, only a richer number than you expected.
So the deepest thing in the world isn't stuff at all. It's possibility, wearing a direction now.
That is the shape of it. Last week the possibility carried only a size, how strongly the particle leaned toward being here. Tonight it grows a second half, a direction, an hour. Same wave of maybe, only now with a hand on it. The maybe was always the real thing. We have simply found out it was pointing somewhere.
A number the world carries, not a thing. I can hold that, barely, if you keep your hand on my shoulder while I do it. And this arrow that's secretly a clock, does it have a grown-up name? Because a little hand is going to get me laughed out of any serious room.
The mathematicians have a name for this richer kind of number. They call it a complex number. And here is a promise I'll make and keep all night through. We are not going to do a scrap of arithmetic with it. No algebra, no strange symbols, none of the machinery that quietly empties a room. The arrow is the picture. The clock is the picture. That is the entirety of what complex number needs to mean to you tonight. A number that is secretly an arrow.
A number that is secretly an arrow. I can already feel that sentence annoying a mathematician somewhere across town, and I want you to know I intend to enjoy that thoroughly.
Enjoy it with a clear conscience. It is more honest than most of what they'd fire back. Now, we have the amplitude, the little arrow, but there is a wall standing between it and you have to feel how high that wall is. You never see the arrow. No instrument in the world reads it off. No dial you could ever build will swing round and show you an hour. The arrow stays hidden, always, down underneath.
Well, that's a fine housewarming gift. You've handed me an object and told me in the same breath I can never lay eyes on it. Then how does it touch my world at all? What is it I actually get to see?
You get to see one thing, and one thing only, where the particle shows up. You fire it and it lands somewhere. A single dot, a click in a detector, a fleck of light on a screen. That is all a measurement ever gives you, not the arrow, just the place it landed. And the bridge between the hidden arrow and that visible dot, that bridge is the reason we are here tonight.
Then build me the bridge. How do I cross from a thing I can't see to a dot I can?
You take the arrow's length, at whatever spot you care about, and you square it. That is, the length multiplied by its own plane self. And that number is the probability of finding the particle at that spot. A long arrow, a big number, the particle turns up there often. A short arrow, a small number, rarely. And an arrow of no length at all, nothing to square, the particle never turns up there. That is the rule. That is the bridge, entire.
Wait, say that once more, slowly, because you slid a whole promise across the table in the middle of a sentence. The length of the arrow, squared, is the chance, squared.
Squared. The length times its own self. That, and not the length raw. This is precisely the thing you were promised last week and told to sit on. That the squared size of the wave gives the odds. Now it stands up in full daylight. The odds you measure are the squared length of a hidden arrow.
And be careful with me here because I can feel a trap yawning. It's the length I square, not the arrow. I can't square an arrow. An arrow isn't a number I can multiply by itself. I take how far it reaches, and I square that.
You take how far it reaches and you square that, and nothing else. Not the arrow, not the hour, the reach alone. Get that one word right and half the muddle of this subject never once comes knocking. The chance is the squared reach of a thing you never get to see.
And this rule has the name you said we'd say aloud.
It does. It is the Born rule, named for the one who first saw it. And I want to be scrupulous about what it is, because it is easy to oversell, and I won't do that to you. Nobody derived this rule for you tonight, and nobody derived it from something deeper underneath either. Not tonight, not anywhere. It was read straight off the world. It is simply what nature does, the bridge from the hidden arrow to the odds you count, and it happens to be among the most exactly tested statements in all of science. Tried and tried and tried again, and never once caught in a lie. We hold it because it's true, not because it's lovely.
Never once caught in a lie, you mean that plainly, not as a turn of phrase.
Plainly, wherever anyone has been able to check it, and people have hunted hard, hoping to catch it slipping, careers waiting on the catch, the squared reach has handed back the measured odds, dead on. It is not a rule we reasoned our way into from something grander. It is a rule the world simply keeps, and we took it because the world keeps it.
I'll take a because it's true over a because it's lovely any day of the week. You've known that about me a long time. So let me get the shape firm before you build the tower on it. There's a hidden arrow at every spot. I can't see the arrow, but I can square its length and out comes the odds of the particle landing there. And the squaring is blind to the direction. It only ever weighs the length.
Stone blind to the direction. Feel the weight of that, because it turns important very soon. Two arrows of the very same reach, one pointing forward, one pointing dead backward, square to the identical chance. The Born rule reads the length and throws the hour clean away. A hand at noon and a hand pointing the opposite way, same reach, same odds, to the last decimal. The direction, when you square a single lonely arrow, does nothing whatsoever.
So a particle with just the one root, one arrow, nobody to argue with, comes out featureless. A plain, smooth chance, no bright bands, no dark ones, because there's no second hour on hand for it to disagree with.
Just so. A single arrow, all on its own, squares to a plain, dull chance, the same whichever hour it happens to hold, and there isn't a stripe in sight. You need two of them, at the least, before the direction can bite, which sharpens your rude question into a blade. If the squaring can't so much as see the hour, what is the direction actually for?
That's exactly what I was winding up to demand, and you've gone and asked it for me. If the hour never shows its face in any chance I can measure, every dot just a squared length with the direction already binned, then the direction's a passenger, riding along, doing no work I could ever catch it doing. So either it's an ornament you've hung on for show, or it earns its keep somewhere you haven't shown me yet. Which of the two?
The second, and it is the hinge the knight swings on. The direction does nothing when the arrow is alone. One arrow by itself, squared, the hour is mute, you're dead right. But the instant two arrows have to be combined, the instant there are two ways for the same thing to happen, the direction stops being an ornament and becomes the entire show.
Two ways for the same thing to happen. You mean my two doors, the particle reaching one spot by two routes.
Your two doors. The situation in your losing bet. So now, at last, we do the sum. The one nature runs in the wrong order. Suppose the particle can reach a spot by the first route, and it can reach the same spot by the second route, and, This matters, hold it tight. There is no way in the world to tell which route it truly took. The two ways are genuinely indistinguishable. Now, what do you suppose you do with the two arrows?
Well, going on my sane world instinct, the one you're so gleefully out to wreck, I'd square each arrow to get each route's chance and then add the two chances together. Chance by the first door plus chance by the second door. That's the add the chances rule I was raised on, sweets and all.
That is what you would do. And that is exactly what nature does not do. Watch the order like a hawk. You want to square first and add second. Square, then add. Nature does it the other way about.
The other way about, meaning add first.
Add first. When the two ways are truly indistinguishable, you do not square the arrows yet. You don't lay a finger on the squaring. You take the two arrows and you add them. As arrows, with their directions honored, you lay them tip to tail, the tail of the second pinned to the tip of the first, each still stubbornly aimed at its own hour. Then you draw one new arrow straight across from the very start to the very end. That combined arrow is the real amplitude for reaching the spot. And only then, only at the very end, on that one combined arrow, do you square the length. Add the arrows, then square the total. Not square the arrows, then add the totals. Add, then square.
Let me say the recipe back before my nerve goes. 2 secret routes to one spot. I square neither arrow. I lay them tip to tail, keep both their hours, draw the arrow home straight across the gap, and only that one, the length of the arrow home, do I ever square. Add, and then the single square right at the very end.
That is the recipe, letter for letter. And feel the discipline it asks of you. While 2 secret ways are still in play, you never square a lone arrow on its own. You wait. You hold them raw and able to cancel, and you square once and only the total. Square a heartbeat too early, and you have thrown the game away.
That's it. That's the earth-shaking secret of the quantum world. You changed which thing you do first. Add then square instead of square then add. I could have gotten that wrong on a sleepy Tuesday and not even noticed I'd done it.
You could. And that tiny slip, that swapped order that sounds like a pedant clearing his throat, is all the difference between your world and the quantum one. Those 2 orders describe 2 different universes. Square then add builds the sane world, the one where more doors is always more likely, the one your bet lives happily in. Add then square builds the world we actually wake up in every morning, the one where a second door can darken a room. Same 2 arrows, different order of 2 little operations. 2 different realities fall out.
No, come on now. That's far too much weight to hang on a swapped step. 2 whole realities out of which do I do first? I don't believe you. Show me. Don't tell me it's enormous. Show me it's enormous. Take the same 2 arrows and make them give me 2 different answers, and let the only difference between them be the order.
Gladly. This is the moment I've been walking you toward all night. Take the plainest case there is. 2 arrows, both the same length, and, here is the key, both pointing the same way. Same hour on the clock, both forward.
2 arrows, matched length, both pointing forward. All right, I've got them in my hand.
Do it your way first. Square then add. Square the first. You get some chance, call it a helping. Square the second, the same helping since they match. Add the 2 helpings together. You get 2 helpings worth of chance, more than either door alone. Exactly as your instinct swears blind it must be.
Good, that's the sane answer. 2 doors, more chance. Now do it her way, the wrong order way.
Now add then square. Lay them tip to tail. Both point forward, so the second sets off from the tip of the first and carries straight on down the same line. The two run end to end into one arrow, twice as long. Now square that. A doubled length, squared, is not 2 helpings, it is 4. The combined arrow, squared, gives 4 helpings of chance, where your way gave only 2.
Hold on, 4? So right, where your rule and mine disagree, mine says 2 and nature says 4. When the arrows agree, she hands me even more than I bargained for?
Even more. That is the bright side of the ledger, and it earns a name. When 2 arrows point the same way and reinforce into a longer arrow, we call that constructive. The spot blazes brighter than the honest sum of the 2 doors. More likely, not less. Where the arrows agree, the world is more generous than your arithmetic ever promised.
But that's the wrong direction for my grief. My bet went dark. I need a spot that drops to nothing, not one that blazes up. Where's my darkness?
Here it comes. Same 2 arrows, matched length, but now the second one points the opposite way. A half turn round the dial. The first points forward, the second points dead backward.
Square then add first, so I can watch my poor instinct walk cheerfully off the cliff.
Your way. Square the first, 1 helping. Square the second, and remember, squaring is blind to direction. Backward or forward, same length, same helping. Add them. 2 helpings again. Your rule cannot even see that the second arrow is reversed. It hands you 2 helpings, bright as before, and never once notices anything has gone wrong.
Cheerfully colourblind, my poor old rule. It squared away the one fact that mattered, the backward hour, before that fact could do a thing about anything.
Before it could so much as lift a finger. Your rule shreds the directions first and adds up the wreckage. So of course it cannot tell a forward arrow from a reversed one. It binned the difference at the door before the guest was even shown in.
And now hers, add first.
Lay them tip to tail. The first goes forward. The second, pinned to its tip, points backward. So it walks straight back down the road the first one just came, the whole way. And if the 2 are matched in length, it walks you clean back to where you started. The combined arrow reaches from the start to the start. It has no length at all. Now square that. Nothing multiplied by its own nothing is nothing. The chance is 0. The spot is dark. Forbidden.
So there it is. There's my darkened room, laid open on the table. 2 arrows that each, alone, would have lit the spot. Added tip to tail, they close back to nothing, and the spot goes black. And my old square first rule is standing over in the corner, insisting everything's fine. 2 helpings, nice and bright. Stone blind that the second arrow came in backward and quietly murdered the first.
Stone blind. Because your rule squared away the direction before it ever got to do its one job. It threw out the single piece of information, the hour, the way each arrow pointed, that decides whether the 2 build or cancel. Square first, and you murder the directions in their sleep before they can matter to a soul. Add first, and you let the 2 arrows have their argument out loud. And sometimes that argument ends in a long silence.
This is what you meant, all the way back, about the direction. It does nothing to one lonely arrow. The squaring bins it, no loss. But put 2 arrows in a room together and the direction decides everything. Same way, they stack up long and bright. Opposite ways, they fold to nothing and go dark.
That is the heart of it. And this cancelling, this 2 arrows into nothing, has its own name, the deepest single word in the subject. It is interference. When the arrows reinforce, brighter. When they cancel, darker. And every stripe you've ever heard tell of, every band of light and dark in those famous experiments with the 2 slits, is nothing more mysterious than this. Arrows adding across a screen. Here they arrive agreeing, and the screen is bright. A finger's width along, they arrive opposed, and the screen is dark.
Bright dark, Bright, dark, the famous stripes, just arrows quarrelling. Spot by spot along the wall, here the two roads' hands land pointing the same hour, so it blazes. There they land pointing opposite hours, so it's barred. And it marches across in even bands because, as I slide my eye along the wall, the two arrows keep drifting in and out of agreement.
In and out of agreement, the whole length of the wall. A row of your darkened rooms and your blazing rooms, set side by side, printed out evenly till the wall runs out of room. And now, turn back and collect the debt from the very top of the night. Your losing bet. One door open, one route, one arrow. A single arrow squared is just some plain chance, so the spot lights up now and then, exactly as you told me it did. Now open the second door as well. Two arrows arrive at that spot, and at that particular spot, they happen to arrive pointing opposite ways.
And they cancel. To nothing. So the spot that used to light up now and then, with one door open, goes utterly dark the moment I open the second, because the second door's arrow arrives pointing backward and wipes out the first.
There is your monstrous bet, dissolved in front of you. You did not add a chance, you added an arrow, and it happened to point backward. The second door never touched the particle, never shoved it, never got in its way in the pushy, everyday sense of the word. It simply laid down a second arrow at that spot, and that arrow pointed the wrong way, and the two closed to nothing. Open a door, send in an arrow that points back the way the first one came, and you can erase an outcome that used to happen all the time.
That is how a second way to arrive makes arriving impossible.
That is exactly how. Not sabotage, not the door slamming shut. Just a second arrow, arriving reversed, folding the first one back down to nothing.
Then tell me this lands in my world, and not only with your electrons. If I add a second loudspeaker to a room, can a spot in that room actually go quieter or silent?
It can, and it does. Two speakers, and there are seats in the hall where the sound arrives opposed and cancels down to a hush. Dead spots, made by pouring in more sound, not less. Light does it, water does it, every wave there is does it. The cancelling was never the strange part. The strange part is that a lone particle, sent through two doors, does all of this to itself.
I feel like I've been shown the wires behind the magic trick, and somehow the wires are more outrageous than the trick was. More ways can't make a thing less likely. My whole life's instinct was only ever true because I'd been squaring too early. I was killing the directions before they got a chance to disagree. Nature waits. She lets them disagree first, and only then does she square. And the disagreement is the whole show.
The whole show. And notice what you had to give up to stand here. You had to give up the plain chance as the deepest layer of things. Underneath the chance sits the arrow, and the chance was only ever its squared shadow.
And two shadows can only ever stack up. You can't cancel a shadow with a shadow.
You cannot. There is no darkness you add to darkness to get more darkness gone. Two shadows only ever pile deeper. But two arrows down underneath the shadows can point against each other and cancel clean away to nothing. That is precisely why nature keeps the arrows and only casts the shadow at the last possible instant. Because the cancelling can only happen down where the directions still live.
Now hold on, because you've been careful with one phrase all night, and I've been watching you be careful with it. You keep saying the two ways have to be genuinely indistinguishable. No way to tell which route it took. You've said it 5 or 6 times now, and each time you set a little extra weight on it. Like a man stepping on a loose board he doesn't want to hear creak. That's not decoration, is it? That's a condition.
That is a condition, and it is the honest catch of the evening. I'm glad you caught me leaning on the board. The arrows only add, The interference only happens while the two roots stay truly indistinguishable. While nature herself keeps no record, anywhere, of which root actually happened. The moment such a record exists, the arrows stop combining. You fall straight back into your sane old rule. Square each, add the chances, and the cancelling vanishes like it was never there.
A record, meaning if I could somehow tell which door the particle went through.
If anyone could, if anything could. Put a little detector at the first door, so that whenever the particle slips through it, the detector notices. A mark is made, a trace is left, and the universe now knows which way it went. Do that, and the stripes die on the spot. The bright and dark bands smear away into a single dull blob, which is exactly the boring two helpings answer your old rule always coughed up. Peek at the door, and you pay for the peek with the whole pattern.
But that's spooky in a way none of the rest of it was. The arrows were at least mechanical, hands, hours, adding, cancelling. This is the particle somehow caring whether it's being watched. How does a little detector at one door reach all the way across the room and stop two arrows from adding on a far wall? The detector never touched that spot.
It is not the watching, and it is not some shy particle that minds its manners when a person is in the room. Put that picture down. It will do nothing but mislead you. It is the record. Here is the cleanest way to hold it. Interference, the arrows adding, is the reward nature pays out for the root staying a genuine secret. The two arrows can merge into one only because, in a real sense, there is only one story. The particle reached the spot, full stop, with no fact anywhere in creation about which door it used.
And the detector plants a fact, a which door fact.
A which door fact. And the instant that fact exists, anywhere, in the detector, in a stray scratch, in a single nudged speck of dust, there are now two different stories. It reached the spot by the first door. It reached the spot by the second. And two different stories do not blend into one arrow. They each square on their own, and then you add the plain chances, and the cancelling is gone with the wind.
So it's not that measuring jostles the particle and roughs it up on the way through. It's that the record splits one blended story into two separate ones, and two separate stories simply can't interfere with each other.
That is as honestly as it can be said. And mark this, because it's the strangest part of the strange business. The record does not have to be read by anyone. Nobody has to walk over and look at the detector. The mere existence of the trace, sitting there in the world, unread in a drawer for 100 years, that alone is enough to break the two arrows apart.
Then here's a wicked thought. If it's the record that kills the stripes, could I sneak them back? Destroy the record, wipe the note clean, and let the secret close over again.
If you could truly, wholly erase it, leave no trace anywhere, so that not a shred of which door fact survives in all the world, then yes, the secret closes, and the arrows are free to add once more. But a real record is a fiendish thing to unmake. Nature does not forget so easily. And mark it well, for as long as that note survives, even unread, the stripes stay dead. There is no peeking and keeping them both.
So the little clock hands are like a pair of clerks who'll only cancel each other's paperwork so long as nobody, anywhere, has filed a note saying which desk it came from. The very second that note exists, even in a locked drawer no living soul will ever open, the clerks straighten their ties, stamp their forms separately, and the beautiful cancelling never happens.
That is very nearly a working account of quantum mechanics, and I am a little alarmed at how good it is. Yes, the clerks cancel each other's paperwork only while the world keeps no note of which desk. File the note, anywhere at all, and they go back to plain, dull, separate bookkeeping. The cancelling was always a privilege of secrecy. Spend the secret, and you spend the interference along with it.
And this is the thing you dangled at me last week and then wouldn't explain. You told me that if you peek to see which slit each particle takes, the stripes vanish. And I nodded and hated it because I couldn't for the life of me see why. Now I can see why. The peak leaves a record. The record makes the two routes distinguishable, and distinguishable arrows don't add.
There is last week's cliff, paid off with the machinery finally showing. Same fact, only now you can read it instead of just dreading it. The which-way record does not so much disturb the particle as disqualify the interference. It turns one secret story into two open ones, and open stories add their chances like anything else in your sane old world. That is the honest condition, and I'll not dress it softer than it is. Interference is the reward for the path staying a true secret.
So nature is bribing me to stay ignorant. Keep the secret, and I'm paid in stripes. Ask which door, and the pattern is confiscated at the counter on my way in.
That is the trade, put as bluntly as it can be. Knowledge of the path and interference across the path are two things you cannot bank at once. Spend the one to buy the other. The world will happily sell you either, never both in the same purse.
All right, I need to circle back to the one loose thread that's nagged me since the start, because you promised me the answer to it and then buried it under all this gorgeous wreckage. Why an arrow at all? You've now shown me it earns its keep. Same way builds, opposite way cancels. But that only ever used 2 hours, forward and backward. Agree or oppose? So why do I need a whole clock face, every hour of it, when all the action seems to be point the same way or point the opposite way? Why not just a plain number that can be a plus or a minus? Forward is plus, backward is minus, and I'm home in time for supper. Where's the rest of the dial doing a single honest day's work?
That is the deepest question you've asked all night, and it is the perfect one to end the hard part on. So let me earn you the rest of the dial. Here is the thing I've been quietly not telling you. The arrow does not sit still. As the wave travels, the arrow turns. The little clock hand sweeps round, round and round, the whole time the particle is on its way. It is not frozen at an hour. It is winding, like a stopwatch running while the thing crosses the room.
The hand is turning the entire journey, so the hour it shows when it finally arrives
is set by how far it got to turn along the way. And now think about your two routes to the one spot. One route is a shorter trip, the other a longer haul. Both arrows are winding as they go, so by the time the two of them meet at the spot, each has turned a different amount, and each arrives pointing at its own hour. And whether those 2 hours agree or oppose or sit somewhere in between is decided entirely by how much each one got to turn on its own road. That is what sets bright or dark. The turning is the engine of it all.
So it's the gap that matters, not how far either hand turned on its own, but how far apart the two of them ended up. A short road and a long road wind their hands by different amounts, and the difference between those 2 hours is all of whether the spot blazes or goes black.
The gap, and only the gap. Match the two roads so the hands land together, bright. Stretch one road until its hand lags a half turn behind the other, dark. Everything painted on that wall is one gap, opening and closing as you slide your eye along it.
And that is why a mere plus or minus won't do the job.
That is exactly why. A plus or minus is a hand that's only ever allowed to point at 2 hours, straight forward or straight back, and forbidden every single hour in between. But the arrows do not politely arrive at just those two. They arrive at every hour there is. Two routes might land a quarter turn apart, not agreeing, not opposing, but square across each other. Lay those two tip to tail, and the combined arrow is some middling length, longer than nothing, shorter than the full stack, and the spot glows middling, neither blazing nor barred.
So there's a whole smooth ladder of in-between glows. Not just bright and dark, but every shade of half-lit smeared between them.
A whole smooth ladder, one rung for every hour of disagreement between full agreement and full opposition. And a plain plus or minus number could never carry that. It has two settings, forward and back, and the world needs all of them every hour without a gap. That is why nature reaches for the richer kind of number, the arrow, the clock, and not the plain one you grew up adding. She needs a number that can turn.
So the direction isn't bookkeeping. It's not some accountant's convenience I could strip off if I felt tidy one morning. It's physical. The hand really turns, and how far it's turned when two hands meet is a real fact out there in the world, and it decides what I see on the wall.
Physical, right down to the bone. Strip the turning away, flatten the arrow back into a plain number that only knows plus and minus, and the in-between glows vanish, the smooth stripes collapse, and interference itself simply stops.
And you said interference isn't a sideshow, it's the main event.
It is not a sideshow, it is the quantum world. Take the turning direction away, and you have not tidied quantum mechanics up. You have switched it off. There is nothing left that behaves like matter. No stripes, no forbidden spots, no atoms holding their shape. The turning hand is load-bearing. Pull it out, and the whole building comes down.
So the plain plus or minus numbers I grew up on, they were arrows all along. Just arrows that were only ever allowed to point two ways.
Flattened arrows. A plus is a hand pointing forward, a minus a hand pointing back, and the ordinary numbers are the shadow you get once you forbid every hour in between. Nature never forbade them. She kept the full dial for herself and handed the flattened version up to us. For the slow, heavy world, where the turning washes away before we ever notice it.
A number that can turn, that's the reason for the arrow, because the wave, as it travels, wins a little hand, and only a thing with a full direction can keep faithful track of the winding, and the winding is the thing that interferes.
That is the night, held in a single breath, and I did not have to hand it to you. So carry the picture out the door exactly as you built it. The plain odds you measure on the wall are only the surface. Underneath, everywhere, at every spot, little arrows are turning, and where two of them meet, they are added, tip to tail, directions and all, before anyone squares a thing. The adding happens down in the dark, on the arrows. The squaring happens last, on the way up into the light, up to your eye.
Let me make dead sure I've got the order, because the order was the night itself. Nature adds the arrows first, while they can still cancel, while a backward one can still erase a forward one. And only at the very end, only when she's turning the combined arrow into a chance I'm allowed to measure, does she square. Add in the dark, square in the light.
Add in the dark, square in the light. I may quietly steal that from you. Reverse those two, square each arrow first, then add, and you throw away every quarrel the directions ever had, and the striped world goes out with the morning rubbish. You are left with dull, sane, add the chances luck, and not a scrap of the strangeness. The entire strangeness of the quantum lives in that one ordering and nowhere else at all.
And now I finally understand why my opening bet was a dead loser from the first word. I was betting on square then add. I was betting on the sane world. And I happen to live in the add then square one, where a second door sends a second arrow, and an arrow can point backward, and backward arrows erase.
You will never win that bet. But you understand now why you lose it, which is worth a great deal more than winning ever was. And I want to leave you standing right on the lip of the next puzzle, because tonight, quietly, cracked one open without ever closing it.
Go on then. Where's the next crack in the floor?
We now hold two great pieces. Last week, the state, the wave of possibility, the field of little turning arrows. Tonight, the rule that turns the state into odds. Add the arrows, then square. But look hard at what a probability even is. A probability is the chance of getting some particular result, and that quietly, sneakily assumes there is a list of possible results to get in the first place, a set of answers the world is even willing to hand you.
A list of results? Huh. I've been so busy all night with how likely each result is, I never once stopped to ask where the list of results comes from. Why those answers, and not others?
And that is all of next week. Because the answers are not a free-for-all. Nature does not let you order anything you please off the wall. An atom's energy does not come in any old amount. It comes in a fixed ladder of rungs, and nothing whatsoever between them. Ask a particle a certain question about its spin, and it will give you only two answers, one spot or the other, and never, ever a spot in between. Something is deciding which answers are even allowed onto the menu before you ever lift a finger to measure.
And that something isn't luck.
That something is not luck. Luck comes afterward. Luck lays the odds on a menu that's already written. But something writes the menu itself. Something decides in advance which answers the world is even prepared to give. And here's the strange and beautiful part. Every quantity you can measure turns out to be, secretly, an action you perform on the state. And each such action arrives carrying its own short, fixed list of answers it's allowed to return. The menu is folded up inside the question.
So tonight was how likely is each answer, and next time is who on earth decided which answers were on offer to begin with?
That is it, laid out plainly. Tonight, the odds. Next time, the menu. And the strange fact that every question you can put to the world answers only from a fixed little list it somehow wrote before you ever arrived to ask it.
Give me one taste of it before you send me home, or I'll not sleep a wink. One question, with its menu showing.
Then take spin, a particle's own little turning. Ask it which way it points along a line, and it will not sweep you a compass needle's worth of angles. It gives you one of two answers, one spot or the other, nothing in between them ever. A question with a menu of only two, and next week we take it in our hands and ask who nailed that menu to the wall.
Then that's the one I'll be turning over in my hands all week. I came in tonight dead certain I understood chance, certain, down to my boots, that a second door could only ever be a gift. And you've shown me the door was a gift and a curse in the very same breath, because underneath every chance there is an arrow, and arrows can turn to face each other down and cancel to nothing at all. The smooth odds I measure are only the squared shadow of hidden arrows adding in the dark, and that hidden adding, done before the squaring, is the one and only reason the world can interfere with itself, forbid its own outcomes, and darken a room just by opening a second way into it. I don't believe I'll ever look at a plain probability the same way again. So keep the menu warm for me. I want to know who wrote it, and how a question can carry its own answers folded up inside it. Next time, I'll be right here.